Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. Today we're celebrating the amazing dedication of Hope Swinimer and her charity, Hope for Wildlife. Hope for Wildlife has been a charity in Nova Scotia, and it's been a part of our communities both on the mainland and on Cape Breton Island here, as everyone knows a story of survival and hope that's been provided by the incredible dedication of Hope and her staff. As a charitable wildlife rehabilitation and education organization, it's located in Seaforth, and since 1997, they have rescued, rehabilitated, and released over 90,000 injured and orphaned wild animals, representing over 250 species. Amazing number. In addition to the ongoing provision of care they offer, Hope for Wildlife aims to connect people to wildlife in a positive way through knowledge and understanding. And in 1997, while Hope was able to support 40 animals in her first year, today her organization will respond to over 40,000 calls, texts, and emails. They welcome thousands of visitors to their facilities for tours. They give hundreds of off-site educational presentations to community and school groups, and they collect a wide range of data from animals treated at the rehabilitation center. This episode is part of the Podcasthon 2025, and we're shining a light on charities around the world through podcasting. So Hope, I'm excited to have you on the show here and to shine a light on something that I know many Nova Scotians are proud to know that you're hosted here in Nova Scotia and the incredible work you're doing. So welcome to the show.
So much for having me. It's so nice to be here.
On this podcast, we always start with a cup of tea, and we do this to set the stage for the conversation, but also as part of the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health, I'm always about how can we provide a healing session for people while they're listening. And many people might be in their car, they might be busy doing something else, but I want you to know that we want you to take care of yourself too. And so we start with a cup of tea to get the conversation going, and that immediately calms the nervous system. So most people don't know that. So Hope, what have you got beside you today?
I especially made some regular tea. I'll be honest, it's often coffee, but today to honor you and to be a guest here, I thought tea would be appropriate.
Perfect. And is it an orange pico?
Yes.
It is orange pico. Okay. And so for those people who might be listening to the podcast for the first time, orange pico, if it's straight black, that provides you with a calming to the entire nervous system, but it opens up the mind. So you don't get an adrenal jolt like most people think caffeine is going to do, unless you add some milk. If you add milk, then the chemical reaction of that will give you that little bit. So if you are having your own cup of tea while you're listening to this podcast and you chose orange pico, it's a fabulous cup of tea, but know then that you're calming your nervous system, which is really important. So thanks for that choice. All right. And I have Nova Scotia Harvest today. I was trying to think, what do I bring to a conversation about rehabilitating wildlife? And I thought, well, okay, I'll go with what represents Nova Scotia. And so I went with the apple, blueberry, maple syrup. And so Nova Scotia Harvest, I'm just going to look at the package so I can read off of it here. It is a reflection on the beauty of nature, where she shines a light on the sweetest gifts each season, embraced with joy. And I thought with what we're going to talk about today and the idea, lots of times people are thinking about standing on the edge of one of our cliffs overlooking the ocean or being able to walk up in the highlands. But then we think about what is this that happens for our wildlife here and the way that we nurture and support wildlife. So with that, I'm going to say cheers and thank you for coming to the show. And we'll have a sip so everybody has a chance to calm the nervous system. Oh, beautiful. Okay. I just wanted to say a little quote here for this next part, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the goals that you set up for your mission. So this quote is, "Connecting people to wildlife in a positive way through knowledge and understanding, Hope for Wildlife believes that education through rehabilitation is the key to a sustainable future." You want to dive in by telling us a bit about what was behind your idea of creating this special opportunity and the pieces that you think are most important?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you started off with my mission, because I know it's kind of old school and maybe a little old fashioned, but it's incredibly important to me that my mission is understood, and it really is about connecting us back to our natural world. I feel we've gotten away from that over time, and it's really kind of sad. And so I always welcome the opportunity, when my grandparents were still alive, to be able to share their stories. They would often tell me stories about what it was like growing up, many, many years ago. And oftentimes, when I'm faced with hard decisions or something difficult here at Hope for Wildlife, I just go back to my mission, and it helps me make up my mind to know what the right answer to that question is. So thank heavens I made a mission statement, and I refer to it daily. I really do.
That's interesting, because a lot of people struggle with creating their mission statement and really understanding their identity. And so it's nice to hear how you can continue to keep going back and forth to it, and how it can be a guiding compass, because I don't think people really think about that so much. It's kind of like that thing you do on the piece of paper, and then you put it off to the side and, move on. Yeah.
And it's amazing that it hasn't really changed. I still feel it as strongly, 30 years ago as I do today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have 3 areas that you like to focus on. Do you want to talk about those areas?
Absolutely. I think it's important to think of what your goals are. And I often start with education, and people are surprised at that. They would think I would start with the rehabilitation work. But to me, education is all equally important, all 3 of my goals. But education is what's going to bring about the most change, I think. So although they're all equally important, I love the education component of what we do. And it's what's going to hopefully facilitate the most change. The rehabilitation is incredibly important. It's the nuts and bolts, the hard work. It's what we're here for. And, a lot of people sometimes will ask, well, why do you rehab everything? Why not just focus on the endangered animals? And I wouldn't want a rehab set up in any other way than to be able to care about all of nature, because really our message is to help people understand how connected we are. So we are as connected to the endangered animals as we are the more common ones or the plentiful ones, and they're all equally important to have a healthy ecosystem. So I think being able to rehabilitate everything is incredibly important to me. And I also think it has the end result of, attributing to less endangered species. If we take care of every bit of it, then that's going to help overall accomplish what we're after. And the third thing that a lot of people don't think about or even know that we do is the research component. And I've just seen that blossom over the years. And I can remember when we started, there was so little known about wildlife rehab. It really was just a thought in people's minds, and there wasn't a lot of people actively doing it. And I know as of today, I can name many, many papers that have been published. Just for an example is when AI, or avian influenza, when it hit Nova Scotia, I can remember when that first case got diagnosed in Nova Scotia. It was a goose that was brought to Hope for Wildlife. And we'd heard about it in Newfoundland and knew it was probably going to come to Nova Scotia. And sure enough, we got the first case in. We knew what we were looking for. We isolated that bird right away. And sadly, it did pass very quickly. But we were able to send it away for testing. It went to PEI first, and they came up with a positive. And then it went, I think it was Winnipeg, and came as positive for the H5N1 virus. And then later, a couple of years later, we reported the first case of avian flu in fox pups. And it was just interesting to see the difference, in a bird. it's fatal. It's upper respiratory. You hear the animal rasping. You can almost tell just by looking. But with the mammals, it's different. It attacked the brain and seizures and that kind of thing. And we were able to work through that. So half of the pups lived. And with testing and research that's been done, we were able to establish that the mammals could, when we took their blood, they would build up an immunity to this virus. So this is all fascinating, important stuff. And so the scope of research that can come from wildlife rehabilitation is vast and great. It doesn't only affect the science of the animals, it affects, we've studied interactions between young people and nature and found out what the results of that was. And so there's been many, many research papers done here by university students and all kinds of things. So it's nice to be helping in that way also to our natural world.
Mm-hmm. And that's I think also another thing that people don't think about, because it is, you're focused on the animal and making sure they're all healthy and can go back to the wild. That's what everybody's thinking. But as you were just talking, I was thinking about the network that you have. It must be so amazing, the people that you connect with, but then also have resource with. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? It's just coming off that research piece. That's an amazing offshoot, I guess.
I know people often ask me what the most amazing thing about Hope for Wildlife for me personally, and I mean, saving a really hard case in any animal is pretty amazing, and releasing it is pretty amazing. But I love the people I meet, the connections we make, and even the people that come, like the volunteers that come through here. We have some volunteers that have been here over 20, 25 years, and they're friends, they're important people. They're as important to Hope for Wildlife, and they've created this with us. It's a team thing. And just the people really from all over North America, the world. We have interns that come and spend time with us for 16 weeks in the summer from all over the world. And I love to watch the relationships and the friendships that form between the young people that come and visit, people of all ages, really. And I think that's such an important part. And I wished I had have kept track of everybody, and just to see, what field of study they went into, what did they make of their lives? Did it involve nature in some way? I bet you a lot of them, if I went back and checked, a lot of them would have found their calling or their passion in the natural world.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And we're not really even thinking about so much all those students that are coming from outside of Canada and studying species they may not otherwise interact with, but also may have that species where they are, but may have similar species, and then what that represents. It's really amazing.
It really is. And just getting the opportunity to travel for myself to other rehabs. People say, well, why go there? You're wasting your time because you don't have that kind of animal in Nova Scotia. But it's amazing. You have all the same problems. An endangered species anywhere in the world is usually for the same reasons, lack of habitat, fragmentation, too many roads, too much going on, too much development. So no matter where you go in the world, you're going to bring back valuable data and valuable information.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a whole area I hadn't even thought about. I'm so glad that came forward right at the start, because I really like to talk about the power of community and the healing aspects for people. And so many people, when they aren't feeling well, will isolate themselves. And obviously, if you've got germs that you don't want to share, you do isolate yourself. But that part about not feeling so well, spirits aren't quite where you want them to be, and they'll pull themselves out. And so that sense of community is so important. And then the sense of community you have while you're helping the animals or helping other people learn about animals, that's a whole other healing aspect as well.
Yeah, we have a saying here at Hope for Wildlife. It's not only about the healing of the animals, it's the healing of the human spirit too. And we've seen it time and time again. It really brings people together, like-minded people that you fit in, you get along because you have the same passion and the same interests. So it's really quite a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got started and why you stayed in Nova Scotia? Because I think this is also, that's a tough decision to make. And, I think it's a great one, that the way you thought about it. So,
It's funny because back in the 90s when I've always had an interest as a young person in our natural world. And I was very quiet and shy. And I would spend a lot of time just outside on my own, observing and learning about nature and keeping my little notebook. But as I grew older, I I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had a lot of interest. I really liked science. I liked math. I liked physics, chemistry, all that kind of thing. But I love the natural world. And when you got to think back to the 90s, there was really no such thing as wildlife rehabilitation. So my vision wasn't that I would start a wildlife rehabilitation center. It was something far more vague than that, and so as I studied and learned, I realized there were places in the world that that would look after what humans have caused. So, and that just piqued my interest incredibly. So I remember when I got a job at Dartmouth Veterinary Hospital, and that's really I blame them. I give them full credit for helping me develop what happened after that. And it would just started innocently enough. As manager there, the front desk staff would often pass over the phone calls if it involved a wild animal. A hit by car, a window strike, a cat bitten bird. And before I knew it, I was getting all those calls. And then people say, well, this animal's injured. What should I do? And I had the best bosses in the whole world. And they said, oh, bring it in. We'll look at it. So that's how it started. It started as 30 or 40 animals a year. And then I remember a knock on my door one day from Department of Natural Resources. And it was Jenny Costello and Doug Archibald. And they said, what you're doing is not legal. I said, oh, come on in. What do we need to do to make it legal? And I remember inviting them into my kitchen that day and having that start of that conversation. And it took many years to get approval because they really had to refer to the states where rehab was happening and, get some of their guidelines and standards from there. And after, it took about 2 years, but they finally got their first ever permit issued to me. At that time, it was me personally to run the wildlife rehab. And it has lots of rules and regulations and stipulations, and it still does today. What started as a one-page permit is now like an 83-page book. But it's good. There needs to be high standards, and they need to be sure that we're doing things right and that we're helping. So I'm really glad that there is those kind of government regulations watching. I do feel strongly that as we excel and grow and get better at what we do, we should be allowed to grow with the system. And we're always working towards being able to do all Indigenous wildlife of Nova Scotia. We're not there yet, but we are making headway. So I'm happy about that. And I'm a little bit stubborn and I keep on trying. So even though it's taken 30 years to get to where we are today, I wished I had another 30 to continue on, but hopefully the young people will pick up where I leave off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's remarkable to think that you were doing something that like you said, it wasn't a thing yet to do rehabilitation, but to think for those people that go, well, I don't know how I would do that, right? Young people, I don't know how I would do that. So some people just won't do it. Instead of saying, oh, I'm not doing this correctly, come in and tell me how. So many people would say, oh, please stay at the door. I don't want to change the way things are going.
Yeah.
That's remarkable to be able to work that way.
And I love that part of it, to always question, sometimes you'll hear myths and things that are incorrect about nature. And it was my nature to say, well, where did they get that from? And what is that based on? And is there any evidence that would prove that? So I do tend to challenge and question, but I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. I'm thinking about all the people that you've kind of come in contact with that have brought in animals or maybe have called back because they've heard of an animal. Do you want to talk about some of those interactions?
Yeah. I love doing the phone, and I still do it. I do it 7 days a week. I usually am on the phones almost every morning. And people are often surprised, oh, is this Hope? And I say, yeah. And I say, well, you're answering the phone. Yes, of course I am. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me connected. It lets me know what's going on in our natural world. It lets me know where the problem areas are. You know, the phones are unique in that you need a lot of knowledge to know. There's so many questions that people call in about, like that deer that has a broken leg, or that fawn sitting quietly on their front doorstep, or that window strike that the bird just looks stunned. What should they do? There's just 101 different questions. So for every 100 phone calls I get, there's probably only about maybe 10 that I will send a volunteer out to collect that injured animal and bring it in for care here at Hope for Wildlife. It really is an opportunity to help people understand nature. And I think that's so incredibly important. So to teach people that, oh, you touched a baby bird? No, the mother will not reject it. That's just a myth. And, oh, there's a bird on the ground not flying? Well, it's spring or early summer, so that's perfectly normal. All birds go from the nest to the ground. They spend a bit of time on the ground learning to fly from the ground up. So just those basic things that maybe 50 years ago, the general population knew because they were more directly involved. But not so much anymore. And that's my mission. That's what I want to recreate, just that common sense knowledge about nature and how to live with it. Like, should I be worried going for a walk in the woods? What do I do if I see a coyote? What do I do if I see a black bear? So just reconnecting people to understand what they should be fearful of and what they shouldn't, what they don't need to be fearful of is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a Trivial Pursuit game.
Good.
Just jumped into my head.
I'm really bad at regular Trivial Pursuit, but I think I'd be good at a nature one.
Yeah, so much that can be learned. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the educational programs that you take out into the community?
Like I said earlier, there's so many ways to educate. It just, the first way is just on the phone. But we have a program. We have a wonderful lady named Emma who goes into the school systems at least 2 to 3 times a week with several, maybe 4 or 5 education animals, and presents to that classroom. And really, it's all about telling the stories of why this animal came to be at Hope for Wildlife, and also hopefully teaching what to do, to prevent some of these things from happening. Because a lot of things are preventable if we only take the time to learn how. So by going to the classrooms, you're reaching an audience that has this true love. And it hasn't been, I think as you mature, you get busy with life and you tend to take the easy way out sometime. Oh, there's a raccoon in my attic. I'll just get a trap and take it away. And, we know that that's probably not the best way to deal with that problem. There's better ways to deal with it. But as you get older and life gets busy, you want that magic wand. You want that quick fix for everything. And every problem has like 5 or 6 or 10 solutions to help make it better. There is no quick fix for a lot of these things. So I think young people get that and they're willing to learn, they're willing to put in the time and effort. So that's the time we want to be talking to them. So the classrooms are important. We do a lot of groups like the Cubs and Scouts and Girl Guides and all that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun. We even go into senior homes and it's just heartwarming to hear the stories. Like if you bring in a skunk, somebody in that room is going to say, "Oh, I had a pet skunk when I was young," and you just it's just joyful to hear their stories and to see the look on their face and the joy it's brought them to be able to touch and be up close and personal with an owl, or it might be a turtle. Who knows what it might be that we bring that day, but it does bring joy. It really does. So
Mm-hmm.
it's wonderful to be able to share that.
Yeah. And it really does pull people out of their shell. They don't have to talk to people necessarily. They can just be totally focused on the animal. But that interaction can really bring someone alive who maybe hasn't had much that they really cared about all day long. And that spark of seeing that little something that they can pass their love to. Yeah, it does make a difference.
It really does.
Yeah. As you're looking at the future, talk a little bit or share a little bit with us about how you want to move the charity forward. What are some of the new ideas?
So many. I tell people, I used to say I need 2 lifetimes to get it all done. Now I'm saying I need 3 lifetimes to get it all done. My list is way too big. But there's so many things. And every day, like we never seem to stay in one spot. Like when COVID came, things changed. Like it became difficult to fundraise. It became impossible to go into the schools. So a lot of things had to be put on hold, or we had to think of new ways to do them. And one thing we did do over COVID that we could do was we created 3 triage centers. So we were finding by the time an animal drove from the tip of Cape Breton to Hope for Wildlife in Seaforth, Nova Scotia, it might be dead on arrival. It may not have survived that kind of journey. So by putting a triage center in Cape Breton, that animal gets warmed up. It gets fluids, it gets pain meds, it gets oxygen, it gets what it needs so that it can be stabilized and make the rest of the trip to Hope for Wildlife. So we created a triage vet clinic in Cape Breton, the South Shore, and the Valley. So now it's much easier. We still have some gaps, but it's much easier to get that emergency hands-on first care steps that they need. And then they're more likely to make the journey here for their medical, for their surgery, or whatever it is they need to go forward to get better, to be released back to the wild. So that's a big project and a big change, and that we've grown. But for the future, there's just so many things this year coming up. We're really positive. We've been hearing really good things from government that there might be the possibility of black bear cub rehab. So my fingers are crossed. I'm willing, ready, and able to break ground and start that immediately. Another thing we've just secured is a small grant to create the best ever turtle trauma center. In Nova Scotia, we have 4 turtles, indigenous turtles, freshwater turtles, the Blandings, the wood turtle, the eastern painted, and the snapping turtle. They're all at risk in Nova Scotia. So they're fascinating creatures, and I just care about them so much, and so many people do. So, and we've got really good medicine. We have a veterinary hospital right here on site, and our doctors incredibly trained and skilled in saving turtles. So we want to create the best ever turtle trauma center. And we're just started last week cleaning out an old building that we're going to create a really beautiful place for them to recover. Turtles take a long time to get better. But that being said, they're also incredibly hardy. So, it's definitely worth trying with each and every one to get them back out to their wild world. So that's a project that we really want to focus on this year, along with the possibility of black bears. But each and every day, we learn something new about medicine, about care, about enrichment, about ways to protect our natural world. So that part never stops. One of my biggest dreams, and I'll probably never be allowed to do it, would be do a captive breed and release program on pine martens. They're my favorite species well, I shouldn't pick favorites, but they're a species that have fascinated me my whole life. And I've gotten to work with some pine martens over the years, and they used to be a part of Nova Scotia's landscape. You could go out into the woods and see a marten. And now, sadly, there's very few of them left. And I'd like to change that. I'd like to be able to go out for a walk in the woods and see a marten running across the treetops and staring down at you. But, whether I'll be able to do that, I don't know. But I'm going to continue to try.
Well, it's been said out loud. We've sipped our tea.
It will happen.
We're listening. Yeah. So you never know, but isn't that something? And can you tell me a little bit about that species? Because I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. So the pine marten, they're all there's the pine marten in Newfoundland too, and in Nova Scotia there was an actual captive breeding program in place at the Agricultural College in Truro. Now, sadly, I think it was the 80s that it started up, and they used martens from New Brunswick. And at the time, they didn't have the kind of testing that we have available with DNA and knowing about the lineage of these animals. So the program got closed down, sadly, because they weren't sure if the New Brunswick marten was similar to the Nova Scotia marten, and they didn't want to reintroduce a New Brunswick marten. What they wanted to do is save the Nova Scotia marten. So now we know that they are identical. So it's a shame that that program did get shut down, because it could have saved the martens. There's believed to be less than 100 female martens left in the Upper Cape Breton Highlands. Now, they are on the endangered species list, but I am hearing little bits of information, and I tell anybody that has a marten picture, send it to me. I want to see it. And there are a few more sightings than ever before, or maybe people are sharing them more. I don't know. They're a beautiful creature. They're part of the mustelid family, so the minks and the weasels and the skunks and that kind of thing. They're sure-footed and fast and quick. They only weigh a couple of pounds. They have beautiful orange patch on their neck, and they go through a lot of color variations through the winter and the summer, but they have a brown coat that goes kind of taupey in the winter. And they have some neat characteristics. They don't have the ability to store fat. So a hard winter is a really hard winter for a marten. And so there's just some fascinating facts. They can do delayed implantation so they can decide when they want to give birth. So when they breed, it would be great if humans could do this, but they can pick the time. So if it's been an incredibly hard winter, they can wait a little bit and delay the birth of their family for a little bit. So there's just everything about them is fascinating and cool.
Yeah. Wow. That changes everything, doesn't it? Can you tell me a little bit about the kinds of donations that you do get to Hope for Wildlife?
So many, and they're all equally needed and important. It can be somebody dropping off a gift of medical supplies or towels or food. We do get a lot of things donated. People's time. It's one of the best things you can give us. Like, come on out, help us. If you can't afford a day a week or 3 hours a week, maybe once a month, or maybe your workplace would like to come out and have a work party, and we'll put you to work in the summer, helping the property be healthy and beautiful, or cleaning out cages, just hard work. We need it. There's so much to help there. We do have things like 50-50 raffles to help fundraise, which are fun, and people appreciate the chance to help themselves along with helping nature. So it's a good one. Donations online. We have a Amazon wish list, so people can go in, and we've got things there that we need every day. And then it's so fun. A truck rolls up, and there's that thing that we really needed, and it arrived by the good nature of somebody that wanted to give to our cause. And it truly is amazing to see. People often leave us in their will, and that's such a beautiful thing, and such a kindness to think of us, at the end. And it's really, really helps the cause continue and go forward.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought of some of those ideas. And you've done the 50-50. Is that the same as the raffle that you've had?
Yes, the 50-50 and we do it every other month for a few weeks. So we don't want to overdo it. So we do it, every other month, and people really support it, and it's very helpful.
Well, and that's the thing about your organization is it's completely across the province. It's not like just because you live in Seaforth and you're in this small community, you impact all the way across. And I know about the raffle as well from the people up here who all participate on a regular basis. And so it's interesting that you can have that much impact across the province.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, because maybe people in the South Shore will support because of the triage center there, and same as the Valley, and same as Cape Breton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Is there anything we haven't talked about today that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Just how appreciative everybody here is, and of the kindness and support that the community, and when I say community, I mean not just Nova Scotia. There's so many people that help us from afar, and the people that come and to visit, the people that come to work. It truly shows you the caring. And I think, if you look to the future and if you see what's changed over the last 30 years, there's a willingness that I've never seen before. It used to be, oh, let nature take its course, don't interfere. And we got to step away from that. It's not okay to negatively interfere, but not positively fix what we've done. So it's a different way of thinking. Simple things like, I get calls on I have too many Canada geese in my yard. What do I do? And
Yes.
that's the most common one. And I really think people are starting to get it. Oh, that coyote and that bobcat and those other higher predators are going to eat the eggs, and they're going to keep the numbers under control. So it really is, you've got to look at the whole picture. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You need to allow nature to be balanced. And I think that's a hurdle that's hard for people to step across, but I'm seeing it like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have as many Canada geese if that bobcat hadn't been shot in the community. There's misplaced perceptions of fear and that kind of thing. So educating yourself on that, how to live comfortably with all of nature. You don't need to like it. You don't need to, like, we love all of nature here at Hope for Wildlife, but we don't expect the general public to. We know that. So, but just realizing that in the long run, it does help. It helps the human race too, if we allow nature to be balanced and try to stop controlling it and share our space a little bit more with it. Don't need to share our house and our attic, but the property around our homes makes good habitat sometime for nature.
Mm-hmm. And that is something too that a lot of people of that deer keeps coming and eating my whole garden, and then they want to get rid of it. Yet the deer owns the yard.
Like today, I had a call.
We're just visiting.
The call. There's a porcupine in my yard. Do you relocate wildlife? And I said, no, but I can tell you little tricks on maybe how to get them to move along a little bit in a nice way. So that's what we're there for, to try and give humane solutions to your issues. And I'd be honest, I do try and convince people, like that weasel, I want that weasel off my property. And I'm saying, hey, if the weasel goes, you might have a whole bunch of mice. They're helping control and balance nature. So, if you move the weasel out, who knows what's going to move in next?
So tell me a little bit about how people can access the resources that you have, because I didn't ask you that question.
We get a lot of emails, and I apologize to anybody that has a email in my incoming box right now, because I have over 2,000. So I always tell people, text or call. It really is the best way to get immediate action. So if you have a wildlife problem, if you see something that you're worried about, text us or call us. And we answer our calls from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. And even sometimes through the night, we are open here. All you need, if you hit something and you want to bring it to us, you just ring that doorbell at 2 a.m. and someone will come running to admit that animal. It might take 5 minutes to get down the hill, but we'll get there and we'll wait on you. So even though we can't answer our phone 24/7, we do offer, we're open 24/7 at all our locations, and we will get that animal in and care for it. But it is a lot, and we need all the volunteers we can get to keep up with the demand. Like, we'd love to do more education, but you need a lot of people educating to make that happen. And so we have a need there for sure.
My goodness. And in your satellites, you have different volunteers in each of those communities. So if somebody lives closer to one of your satellites, there's opportunity to volunteer there.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't need to just be bringing wildlife down. It can be helping clean them at that facility, like help clean the animals up, help with prepare the food. There's lots, maybe just hold down the fort so the person working there can get a day off. and, you know, go enjoy their freedom for a few hours. All of those things are available at our triage centers.
Mm, that's interesting because we don't often think about that. If you're on 24/7, what does that really mean? Yeah.
It's tough. It really is. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a lot. So sometimes if they need to go out for groceries, they'll put a little note on the door, please leave your animal here. I'll be back in an hour, you know. But
Yeah.
we do try and give as good service as we possibly can as a charity.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, how about some of the research papers you talked about? How could people access some of that kind of information? Do you keep that on your website?
It's a good idea. No, but I think I'll start doing that. I'm trying to create a really good data bank of commonly asked questions and answers, everything from what is the effect of fireworks on wildlife to, you know, just commonly asked questions. But I should get those documented because there's been quite a few and all
Mm-hmm.
different kinds, like all different kinds, and they're really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a little dry sometimes to read through because it's a lot of scientific data.
Science.
But that's a really good idea. I should get them up on my website. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, a little more work
That's
for you.
okay.
And do you have an application process for those people that think they want to come? They're working on their science degrees or whatever. What is the process for that?
Really easy. They go to our website, and it can be anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone in the field studying. But if they want to join us, they click on the link that says join us. And then they can actually sign up for a territory too. But as soon as they fill out, it's a very simple application. A gentleman named Ian will give them a call and welcome them and go over a few things. And we have this neat app that we share with everybody. And what we do every time I get a phone call in, I post it up to see if a volunteer can go pick it up. It could be a bird in a box that was bitten by a cat, and then they will drive their car and pick it up. And then they might meet somebody an hour down the road or a half hour down the road. So there's those opportunities too. And once they join us, then they get access to all our open shifts too. I build this beautiful schedule. So they might look and say, oh, they're looking for someone to help out at their drop off from 4 to 8. I think I can do that. And they just need to accept. And we greet them and give them a little bit of training, throw them into the deep end. And that's how we get our volunteers. And so it's quite easy. And it may be a little scary. We're trying to get more detail to the people before they come, get a little tour of the facility before they start. So we're working hard to make it a little bit easier to join us and not so scary. But we probably have about 250 people that are connected in some way.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's beautiful. Can you share your website again?
It's just www.hopeforwildlife.net. And we have a very active Facebook page too.
Okay. And the Facebook page, then that's where you are posting different pieces, kind of keeps everybody up on more of the day-to-day kind of things.
It is. And if you want to send us your email, there's a place you can, or you can just email info@hopeforwildlife.net. And if you send us your email, we can send you, if you're not into Facebook, we do a monthly email newsletter too that people really have been enjoying. So just once a month we'll email, and you'll get to read all the updates and things that are going on.
Perfect. And do you have Instagram?
We do. Don't ask me too many questions about it though.
Okay, I understand completely.
Else what's after that? But yes, we do. Yes,
we do have an Instagram too. Okay. Perfect. And now, one of the things about raising awareness for charities with the Podcasthon is really, and I'm speaking to the people that are listening and who may know people, to think about, is there a way that you could interact with Hope for Wildlife? Is there some kind of impact you can make? And maybe it's a financial one, but maybe it's time, maybe it's supplies, maybe it's a wish list, maybe it's a birthday party, and you want to dedicate all of the presents to Hope for Wildlife. Whatever way that you think you can interact, we'd like you to think about that. And we'd like you to really shine a light on how could we make a bigger difference by engaging more with your organization and help you to achieve the dreams that you've outlined. So as people are listening, I'm just going to invite you to think about that. And if it means going onto Facebook and starting to share posts and start to share it a little bit wider. And if you are a great Instagram person, then awesome. Being able to share that further too, that would be great. And together, it's when all of us work, we can just make such a much bigger impact. You've already done the hard work of getting it established and creating a large document, but also a really good regulatory system. And that system, I'm sure, has been watched by many others. And so you've done the hard work. So now it's our job to step in and see what can we take it further with. So, all right, Hope, thank you so much for sharing all about what you've done, and congratulations on what you have achieved and where you've taken it, and for the dreams that you're putting forward for your future there.
Thank you so much for what you've offered today and sharing the word. It's very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. So as you are finishing off your cup of tea and you're thinking about some of the things you're doing this year, perhaps you want to think about in what way could you compassionately reach out to help others, and in what way might you be able to help Hope for Wildlife. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website, greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.